My name is Owen Kincaid. This is a small voice on 6:40 a.m. out of a half-lit service bay on the north edge of Cheyenne, Wyoming. It is 5:32 a.m. Mountain Time. The wind outside is pushing dust across the empty frontage road in long, low sheets that hiss when they slide over the cracked asphalt. The thermometer wired to the side door says 48 degrees, but the air bites harder than that, and the metal of the mic arm feels cold enough to stick to skin. The lights in here flicker when the diesel generator coughs and steadies. I've got a hand-wound watch ticking by my left wrist, a thermos of weak coffee that tastes like copper, and a tangle of Coke snaking across the floor to a roof whip that should not be working this well, but is. If you can hear me anywhere from Fort Collins up to Casper, or out east to Sydney when the skip is kind, this is the voice you stumbled across while the world pulls its own wires loose. I'm holding on the best I can. You hold on too. It started as a hum. That's what I tell myself now, trying to pin the first thing that felt wrong. A hum where there wasn't one. Trucks idling down on I-25. Sure, they hum, and transformers hum, and you can hear the wind sing through fence wire. This was lower, like the way your chest resonates when a train passes. The day I first noticed it, 9 days ago now, I was checking the antenna grounds on the roof, crouched by the base with a wrench in my teeth. The sky was a flat blue with thin little contrails that looked like pencil lines. A friend in Denver texted that their GPS maps were jumping, blue dot leaping a block, then 5 miles, then dead. And the weather radio was repeating the same warning on a loop with a tone that sounded off, like a piano with one key out of tune. Nobody took it serious. Not at first. There was a breaking news crawl about localized navigation irregularities and temporary satellite telemetry corrections. Then, mid-afternoon, the bank across the street from the feed store went dark, with people still inside. The ATMs locked mid-withdrawal. I stood on the curb holding a bag of bolts and watched a man pound the screen with the side of his fist and then look around like the street was going to explain itself. Night came and the hum deepened. Friends with CBS said their squelch wouldn't hold. On 7.415 megahertz, I heard a station ID from somewhere back east, but the ID repeated 3 times with a small stutter. The NOAA weather broadcast on WX2 out of Fort Collins turned into a smooth voice with no place names, just this area, and these conditions, and the same wind speeds read in the same tone for an hour. On the 3rd day, the city put out a notice. Rolling outages to conserve generation during regional transmission volatility. That was the phrase. Regional transmission volatility, like the grid itself, had become an animal that spooks when you make sudden moves. People posted pictures of streetlights blinking in unison down whole blocks, like a heartbeat you could see. There were small things first, grocery card machines going offline and then back, clocks that needed resetting twice a day, dispatch channels hissing with dead air for 10 seconds longer than usual. If you were looking, if you were the kind of person who wakes at the same time every night and counts the seconds until sleep, you felt it. If you weren't, you went on. Because you have to. 2 more days, and the cell towers started dropping. It wasn't all at once. You could be on a call with your sister and hear the room around her go quiet, then a long stretch of nothing, and then her voice again. My friend Piper, who works signals for the railroad, stopped by with a paper bag of batteries and 2 clipped rumors. First rumor, a burn in a substation outside Greeley that blew a breaker cabinet clean off the pad. Second rumor, trucks in a convoy parked outside a telecom hub in Aurora with no logos and a tall antenna on the lead rig that looked like a fishing pole bent to the point of breaking. We sat on the tailgate in the service bay and split the last decent apple I had. She said the dispatch console at her yard would stick on transmit for 3 to 5 seconds after you let go of the mic, like the system didn't know you were done talking. We finally got told to stop using it unless someone was on the tracks, she said, and then took a breath like she was going to say more, and didn't. By the end of that week, the banks were all offline for maintenance. The gas pumps took cash only if the station had a small generator, or if some clerk was willing to break out the hand crank and the per-gallon logbook. A man in a dusty Ram at the Sinclair on Lincoln tried to hand the clerk a watch in exchange for $20 of regular, and got a stare like he'd offered her a dead fish. At night, the sky over the base to the north would glow that weird, dull red like a town with its curtains drawn. My scanner would skip, catch 3 words, lock the negative authority, repeat, no rail, and then drop back into static. The news anchors wore their calm faces, but the scrolls kept talking about intermittent access, temporary closures, liaising with federal partners. Someone flipped to old studio tape for a morning show when the live feed glitched, and there was a quick shot of the host with no makeup and a face that looked just like mine probably did. Too awake, too dry around the mouth, too many new lines. On the 6th day, something cracked. I woke to a flat quiet that felt like the house had been moved to the bottom of a lake. You know how in the winter, when it snows thick, you hear less? This was like that, but the air was clear and hard with cold, and every little thing sounded wrong. The fridge in the back room was off. The little LED on the surge strip blew and went out. I stepped outside and smelled the cold dust and diesel, and something sharp like burnt varnish. The traffic on I-25 wasn't there. Not light. Not, it's early. Not there. The silence wasn't empty. It pressed. I could hear, far off, the flap of a loose sign down by the muffler place and a single dog barking 3 blocks over. Somewhere, a generator coughed and caught. My radio shelf was dead. The big board stared back with its own blank eyes. I pulled power from the diesel, got the board to wake bit by bit, checked the transmitter's heat like it was a living thing. It is, when you think about it. Everything is, when you have to talk to it to make it work. I tuned down and up the dial, and the dial was a field with burned crops. 2 town stations were looping PSAS about boiling water in case of low pressure in city lines, which was a nice thought, except the water pressure was fine and getting lower because the pumps that kept the towers full were not. I found a voice on 5:20 a.m. from somewhere south, Amarillo, counting in Spanish and then giving road names like prayer. On the shortwave, the ham bands were wild in bursts and then nothing. A call sign out of Kansas asked for a check-in and then forgot it had asked and asked again. I held my mic and waited. When I keyed up, the generator dipped and then steadied. I said my name, my place, and kept it simple. If you can hear me, you're not alone. Call if you can. Keep it short. Say your name, your town, and what you see. I'll read it. We'll make it count. Then I read it again, because I had to hear it said twice. The first calls were short. A woman in Pine Bluffs. We lost phones. Store says cash only. Husband on insulin. Got enough for 5 days. A man in Loveland. Light strong here. Water taste funny. A kid in Laramie who whispered, "My mom says don't talk long." The stations are saying not to drive. The hospital lot is full. These came in like fish nipping a line, small pulls, a feeling, then another. I drew up the line and read what they said into the room. In Denver, which now felt like a country by itself, I heard one clean voice on an emergency net. Repeat all requests for mutual aid by landline or messenger. Do not rely on packet. Do not rely on trunked systems. They said it like they were telling someone at a sink not to expect hot water, even as the sink ran cold and then didn't run at all. The day after the quiet, I got a knock at the bay door slow enough to push dust loose from the seams. It was a man I knew from down by the railroad crossing. Ray, heavy coat, jaw tight, holding a small paper bag of .223 rounds in one hand like he was carrying flour. "You'll want to be careful on the East Road," he said. "There are folks pulling people over, no lights. They step out slow with hands high. They say there's a checkpoint. No badges, no vests." The first car today stopped. Second didn't. I heard the second didn't get far. He shifted a little. Seemed like he was going to ask something, then left without it. I put the bag on a shelf behind the board where I would not have to look at it, but would know where it was. Rumors walked faster than people. That same afternoon, I got a call on the CB side from a voice that said it was coming from the university and the lab. But the voice sounded like it belonged to someone who had not slept and who had spent the last month writing emails that never reached their targets. The voice said the sun had spit quiet at first, and then not quiet. The magnetometers were dancing. There were ground currents where there shouldn't be. "You're not going to get someone to say it on TV," the voice said, "because there are a lot of moving parts and nobody wants to be first wrong, but the middle latitudes are seeing induced currents on long lines. It doesn't matter how you harden at the ends if you cook the runs in between. And if you do get someone to say it, they'll say it can't be that bad, because we've seen storms before, and we have. But a lot of our new stuff is better when it works, and worse when it doesn't. There's also something else in the air. It's not just the sun. It's, well, we don't know." The call cut, like someone had whistled, and the line had turned its head toward the sound. Later that night, a man who said he used to work on the Hill, in D.C., called from a borrowed sat phone. He gave a first name, and I will keep that to myself. He said it was messy back there. The committees wanted briefings. The briefings were tight, but tight didn't stop the leaks, and the leaks didn't tell the hole, and the hole kept changing. "You need to tell people to fill whatever they can with water," he said. "Not because it's poison, because it won't be coming out of the pipes the way they expect. And if they live near a big substation, they may hear some noise. It's not a bomb, but it's not safe to be close." He said someone would say "bad actors" on television soon, because someone always did when the lights went odd, and someone would say "foreign hands," and someone would say "domestic sabotage." And the truth was like a handful of nails in a bucket of sand. One thing sharp and a lot of grit. "You didn't get this from me," he said. "I never called." I said, "You never did." He said, "There are plans, but they were written 40 years ago, and they will break when carried by men who have never held a plan outside a binder." Then he hung up. On the 8th day, we got the thing I had been waiting for and also not. A blackout that wasn't neighborhood small or unlucky street small. It rolled, and you could see it roll from west to east, like someone had tipped a black wave, and it was running along a ridgeline. The hospital backup kicked in. The lights in the sheriff's building held in a way that said, "clean power" and "money." Then those dipped too. The city tried to speak. The emergency alert that should have hit phones hit nothing. The broadcast alert that should have given us a tone and a voice gave us a tone and silence. I tried to get the tone out of my ears by rubbing the place behind my jaw. It stays like the sun stays behind your eyelids when you look and look away. I know I'm saying it out of order. That's how days stack when things break. You tell yourself you'll keep a clean line, and then you pick up a piece and it pulls 3 more pieces with it, and you lay those down too. Here's the line I keep trying for. If you can hear me, tune your knob to 6:40 a.m. when the air is soft near dawn and near dusk, and you'll get me best. If that fails, the CB on channel 3 short, the ham on 7.415 megahertz lower sideband when the night lays good. I am reading what I can confirm and marking what I can't. I am not naming neighbors unless they ask me to. I am saying what I see and what you tell me. I am trying not to be a fool and also trying not to be a liar. Both are easy if you're not careful. I'm going to read calls now. Keep them tight. Say your name or a name you'd like me to use, your town or road, and what you see. My name is Leah. I'm in Tulsa. We lost cell yesterday at noon. Power goes and comes. They told us to boil water, but there's no gas in the store and no propane unless you pay cash, and even then the man looks through you. My brother works night shift at the hospital, and he says the machines beep wrong. They started moving people by hand. If you have a pump for a baby, check it. The wall power is lying. This is Owen. Copy Tulsa. If you can, try a small camp stove in the sink with the window open a crack. Try to share if you can. The city will say boil in a rolling boil for a minute. If you can't, bleach. 2 drops per liter, 8 drops per gallon. Let it sit. Do not trust the first clear glass. Let it run a little if there's run left. Leah, if your brother can call, tell him we'll read what he says on the hour. Name's Omar. Detroit. East Side. They're putting up orange tape at the freeway on-ramps. No troopers in sight. People are making U-turns on the grass and sliding into the ditch. The radio says shelter in place, but it's the same line every time. My neighbor says they opened the armory. I don't know what that means for us. The corner store is selling candles, 1 per person. Omar, if you can hear me, watch the corners. I know you know this, but I'm saying it for the man listening who doesn't go to the store much. Bring someone with you. Keep your head level. Count cars as you walk so your eyes don't stick to faces. 1, 2, 3, like a drill, like a habit. If they opened the armory, it might be for traffic control or shelter. It might be nothing you can use. If you saw the orange tape, treat it like a wall, even if it looks like a ribbon. This is Ruth in Boise. I work at a small clinic. Please tell people to bring their meds in the bottle, not in a bag. And write the name and dose on a piece of paper with a pen. We had to turn 2 people away because we couldn't tell what they had in their hands. The lights go out and we can still work, but it's slow. If you have a neighbor who is old, check on them. If you're going to the river, don't. There's something in it making people sick this week. Ruth, read and copied. People, if you hear that, that's not panic. That's help. The river you know on Tuesday is not always the river on Wednesday. If the pumps upstream hiccup and a slug of bad water moves through, you will not see it by looking. Treat all surface water like it's trying to lie to you, and then forgive it because it can't help being itself. My name is Tom. Halifax, Nova Scotia. If you can hear this, we can hear you on shortwave. The ferries aren't running. The port is stacked up with container ships that look like apartment blocks, and they're all dark. We got told there is a cyber thing, but nobody will say who. We have power, but there's a taste in the water like pennies. Tom, that's far. You're a long throw from me. If this gets to Halifax, then we are a net of voices, and I'm glad. I can't tell you what the taste is from here. I can tell you to flush your lines for a minute if you can, and to boil if you can. As for cyber, I hear that word more than I hear the silence sometimes. I don't know how to weigh it. I do know that a thing can be two things at once. A storm from the sun that makes long wires sing, and a hand at a keyboard that flicks switches. We forgot we're connected to doors with locks we forgot to fix. The hour turns and the generator stumbles and then steadies. I learned this week how to hear fuel in a tank by tapping it and listening for the change from full to hollow. I've learned that a headlight across the shop door can make my forearms go tight and then ache when I realize it's only a reflection from the glass I leaned by the wall. I've learned that when you talk into a mic for 4 hours straight, your mouth dries in a new way that water doesn't fix. And you have to sit with it and keep going, because the part of your brain that wants comfort is not the part that keeps the words moving in the right order. I've learned that I am not half as brave as I thought I might be, but I am a little braver than the version of me that wanted to stay in bed this morning. That's not a hero speech. That's a weatherman saying the wind is changing. We're going to talk about the insider theories now because you call and you ask and the lines are never clean, but I'd rather hang them up than see you take the wrong road because nobody said the road bent. I told you about the magnetometers and the ground currents because the lab voice told me, and because the sun does not care whether I say its name. There are also voices from the other rooms, the rooms where people wear jackets with logos and carry folders that make their hands look like they know where they are going. One of those voices says there's a power flow oscillation running through the Western Interconnect, like a loose belt on a big engine. When a line trips, the whole mass tries to keep rhythm, and sometimes that works, and sometimes it doesn't. They say it's like trying to walk on a moving truck bed. You can do it until you hit a patch of oil. Another says that old protective relays are seeing numbers they don't like and doing their job, opening up to save the hardware, which saves the parts but leaves the people in the dark. I have a voice that says there are teams sitting in conference rooms with maps spread like quilts, trying to decide which part of the quilt they can pull without ripping a seam somewhere you can't see. They call it load shedding. They call it sectionalizing. The words are clean because the job is not. Another voice says there was a test of a new routing scheme on a backbone that wasn't supposed to propagate the way it did, and it did. And that gave someone an open door into a place where the door should have been a wall. Another voice says, it's not that at all, it's hardware. Transformers that had small flaws that only show when you ask too much of them for too long. There's a phrase I keep hearing, cascading failure. It sounds like a water show at a hotel. It is not. It is one thing pulling another down a set of stairs nobody meant to build. If you hear people telling you it's simple, be careful. If you hear people telling you it's nothing, be careful. Here is what I can say without stomping on what I don't know. The wires are not happy. The signals that run the wires are not happy. The people who sit in rooms and watch big numbers on big screens are not sleeping well. And some of them are putting on vests and going to the places where the big wires meet metal so they can put their hands on the points where the math hits the world. That kind of person is the kind of person I trust when the room goes quiet. I'm getting a note through the CB now. Short burst. Hold on. Okay. A rancher outside Wheatland says the National Guard rolled through an hour ago with lights but no sirens. They took the west road toward the reservoir. They had a civilian pickup leading with a plow on it and crossed cattle guard slow. He says they waved, but didn't stop when he stepped out. If you're near that way, let them move. They're doing a job, and the less we gum up the works, the better. This is not me asking you to bend your neck to every flashing light you see. It's me saying, if you can make their day easier without making yours worse, do it. And if you see someone in a vest stopping cars with no markings and no reason and no courtesy, turn around. We need to talk for a minute about food. We are not talking about hoarding. We are talking about not being surprised by your own empty cupboard. There's a thing I keep hearing from older voices. Keep a week at least that you would actually eat. It can be rice and beans. It can be pasta. It can be canned soup. If you have kids, think about what they will actually put in their mouths when the lights go out. This is not the part where I tell you to buy a generator and a bunker and disappear. This is the part where I remind you that nobody shows up faster because you left a shelf empty. You don't have to get it all now. And if the store is chaos, leave. Try again early. Bring cash if you have it. Bring a small light. Expect the card reader to blink and then die. If you own a store, you already know all this, and I don't need to tell you. But I will say, thank you. And I will say, the man who offers you a watch for fuel is not trying to insult you. He's trying to turn a thing he can't eat into a thing he can use. We got a small relay ping from a ham in Santa Fe who says the interstate there is a parking lot by noon and clear by midnight. People drive until the light on the dash gets too close to red, then park and stare at the gauge and then sleep in the seat. If you're doing that, if you're hearing me on a car radio in a line of cars, you told yourself would move in 5 minutes. Check the tailpipe. Make sure you're not blocked. Crack a window. If you can hear birds in the median grass when you turn the engine off, do it. Save what you have. If you left home to go somewhere safer and find that the safer place is full of people who had the same idea, you can go home. You can also go to a friend 2 streets over and ask to sleep on their floor. We are still neighbors. No announcement stole that from us. A man named Frank in Omaha called to tell me they declared a local emergency, and then the TV station went blank. He said a scrolling bar at the bottom said, "Stay off road so crews can work," and then the bar kept saying it while the anchors said nothing. He said he drove anyway to check on his mother and found stoplights flashing red in all directions, and people doing that polite slow dance in the middle of the intersection, inching forward and waving strangers past with tight jaws. Frank said he saw a woman in a yellow coat directing traffic with her bare hands, like she'd been born there. Nobody hit anybody, he said. Just for a minute. We all did the right thing. Then he started to cry, and then he stopped and said, "She waved at me like she knew me." And then he said goodbye. We don't have a lot of clean lines for the law right now. I don't know how to say that without sounding like I want it that way. I don't. There are places where sheriffs and troopers are out in pairs at roadblocks checking IDs, and they will tell you it's for your safety. There are other places where a man with a flashlight is borrowing the voice of a badge he does not own. We got a shortwave call from near Fresno, where a man said his phone got an alert about a curfew, even though his phone couldn't get messages yesterday. And he said when he opened the door to ask a deputy what the curfew was, the deputy told him to go back inside and shut the door. We got a CB call from a woman outside St. Louis who said a man in full camo told her the road was closed, and when she asked why, he said, "Operational security, and thanks for your cooperation." If that last one was real, I don't want to make a guess about who he worked for, and I don't have to. The rule, I'll say, is the same rule you know. If a person can't tell you their name and their job and why they're doing what they're doing in a way that makes sense, treat them like a road that might not be a road. That doesn't mean you throw a punch. It means you don't give them more than you'd give a stranger who knocks at your door at midnight and asks to see your kitchen. Okay. I need to check the fuel and take 4 sips of water and look at the front door and then look away. While I do that, I want you to breathe with me. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Count to 4 when you breathe in. Count to 6 when you breathe out. That gives your body the note that says you can lower your shoulders. I know it sounds silly. Try it anyway. I'm going to read a few more calls, and then we're going to talk about signals and how to find each other when the air gets crowded. This is Jenna in Lincoln, Nebraska. My dad says to tell people that small engines won't like bad gas. If you're using a generator, get a filter. If you don't have one, let your gas sit and pour off the top, and check your oil. And don't run it inside or near a window. He says, tell them the carbon monoxide creeps. Jenna, thank you, and please thank your dad. The carbon monoxide creeps. Put that on a sticky note. Tape it to the front of your brain. I will say it again on the hour. This is Ahmed in Toronto. My shop on Queen Street is closed. We keep seeing men in suits walk past the windows talking into radios that aren't radios. The streetcars all have people sitting in them because they can't get off at their stop, and they don't want to walk 2 miles in the cold. It feels like the city is holding its breath. Ahmed, we hear you. If those radios look like nothing you've seen, they might be new toys from agencies that don't put their names on the side, or they might be placebos. Either way, they don't do you any good unless they tell you when the power is steady, and I bet they don't. If people are stuck, bring hot water to the door if you can. A cup of heat buys time you can't see but can feel. Signal talk. If you're trying to reach me or anyone, keep it short. Don't hold the button and tell your whole week. Say your name, your place, your need. If you're on CB, channel 3 seems clear here. If you're on ham, 7.415 MHz LSB in the evening, 3.900 works some nights if the air lies right. If you have none of that, write on paper. Put a note on the bulletin board at the store. Use simple words. Water pump broke. Generator needs oil. 2 children need amoxicillin 250 milligrams. We'll trade rice for diapers. If you're scared to ask, I get it. Ask anyway. The man who has a shelf will not know you need help unless you tell him. And I'm sorry the world works that way, but it does. If you are the man with a shelf, look for notes that don't sound polished. The polished notes are fine and good. The folded, smudged notes might be someone who wrote with their hand shaking. I keep a notebook. It's a little red thing with squared paper, and I've started to write in boxes because lines feel too thin. In the boxes, I put the time, what I heard, and a letter in the corner. C for confirmed, U for unconfirmed, R for rumor that smells like truth but might be a trick of the wind. The page I'm on has Denver water pressure drop at 3 p.m., C, and guard convoy Wheatland, C, and St. Louis fake checkpoint, U. I put Halifax ferries idle, C, because Tom sounded like a man who knows the shape of his harbor and would not mistake one ship for none. I wish I could hand this notebook through the radio. I can't. I can tell you to start your own. Your brain is tired now. You will remember less than you think. Writing on paper is a way to keep your feet on the ground when the ground moves. There was a voice from a hospital in Rapid City. I didn't read it yet, because it makes my throat tight. I'll read it now. We have nurses who have not been home in 2 days. We have families sleeping in hallways. We have a generator that doesn't like being treated like a power plant. If you come here because you are scared, I get it. Please don't, unless you are hurt. We have too many scared and not enough hurt we can fix. That's the whole thing. No blame in it. That voice is a person who sees a lot and says a little. If you are in a city with a big hospital and your lights are on, that big hospital is doing its work on a machine that wants a rest. If you have a small cut, wash it and cover it. If you have a small fever, drink and wait. If you can't breathe, if your chest hurts, if you're in labor, go. The rest of us can give the road to those people. That is not always how the world goes. Let's try it for a week. I promised radio realism, and I don't know how to do that except to tell you that the board has a sticky fader that squeaks when I push it, and the clock on the wall is 3 minutes ahead of the time on my wrist. And I pick one and stick with it so I don't lose my place. The generator makes a sound when it's hungry, like a belt singing. The lights over the desk flicker when I key the mic on the high side, so I key it on the low and let the words do more work than the watts. The signal will fade when the sun comes up. That's not magic. That's the D layer of the ionosphere getting thick and hungry for the frequency I'm using. If you lose me at 7:15 a.m., come back around 5:30 p.m., and I'll be stronger. If I'm not here, it means I'm fixing something or lying on the floor trying to make my fingers stop buzzing. It does not mean I quit. I haven't yet. I am tired. I wasn't going to say that, but I should. There's a way a man can get on a mic and become a voice that sounds like it doesn't feel what you feel, and that isn't what I want to do here. I lie down on a cot by the breaker panel between hours. I sometimes close my eyes and see lightless windows in rows and rows like teeth in a long jaw. I sometimes put my hand on the wall because it's steady and cool, and the steadiness runs from my palm to my throat and lets me swallow. Sometimes I laugh at nothing for 3 seconds and then stop because there's nothing funny except the dumb way the thermos cap always cross threads when I'm in a hurry. I'm telling you this because I want you to know that if you are shaking while you put on your shoes, that does not mean you're the wrong kind of person for the next hour. It means you're a person in an hour that shakes people. We're going to finish this first stretch with some tips I've heard that feel small but aren't. Tape your fridge shut with a single strip so you pause before opening it. If you have a freezer, keep it closed. Eat the thawed stuff first. If you have neighbors you don't know, you know them now. Knock with your knuckles, not your keys. Stand back from the door a little. Smile if you can. Ask a simple question with a simple answer. Do you have water? Do you need a flashlight? Can I leave this number if you hear my dog? If you go out at night, carry a headlamp pointed down. Light in your hand paints you as a target. Light pointed down shows you the ground and makes you look like you're watching your feet, which you should be. If you have a radio with weather bands, turn it on wide and listen once a day. If the voice says, "This area," be cautious. If the voice says your town by name, write it down. If you hear nothing for a whole day, tell me, and I'll read your silence like I read your words. This is Owen Kincaid on 6:40 a.m. near Cheyenne. The sun is pushing a white line up over the black edge of the east. The wind has a new note in it, like a bottle with a little water left and a lip you can play if you blow carefully. I'm going to refill the generator and repeat the check-in times. And then I'll be back with more calls and what I can pull together about the lines down by Greeley and the rumor about the transformer yard in Pueblo. If you can hear me, you're not alone. If you can't, you won't know I said it, but I'm going to keep saying it anyway. Tune back at the top of the hour, save your batteries, write what you see, and breathe. I'm here. You're there. Between us, there's air and wire and sky, and that's enough for now. It's 6:07 a.m. Mountain Time. The line on the horizon is a dull gray now, not bright enough to warm anything, just enough to show the dust hanging like a veil over the service road. I topped the diesel and got a splash on my sleeve. It smells sharp and it sticks. The generator settled after a hiccup that made my ribs tense on their own. Still on 6:40 a.m. If you need me clearer after sunrise, try again around sunset. Until then, I'm turning the carrier down a hair and leaning on the words. I've got 3 pages of notes and a stack of messages torn from a pad that used to live by the shop phone. I don't know why I took the phone pad. Habit. The phone doesn't ring anymore, but the paper still listens. Short status first. Water pressure in Cheyenne dropped a notch around 5:40 a.m. That's from 2 callers on opposite sides of town and a low whine in a pump at the truck wash that carries farther than you'd think. I'm hearing that the rail line south of town is quiet but not dead. 2 light engines moved past the overpass at 4:50, heading north like scouts. If you're on that corridor and can confirm, key short. Stores along Lincoln have hand-lettered hours taped to the doors. Most of those notes say, cash only, and some say, no fuel. One says, limit 2 gallons per person. If you're the one who wrote that, thank you. Boundaries that make sense keep people from doing things they will regret when this eases. 2 more things before the calls. The sky noise on the shortwave bands is still higher than it should be. There's a softness around the edges of signals that should be crisp. If you're trying to work HF and wondering if your antenna's broken, it might not be you. And the EAS terminals in 3 different small stations near here are still throwing tones with nothing behind them. That tells me the upstream is sick, not just the last mile. I'm saying this so you don't waste your morning calling a station that cannot answer. Aim your time at the problems you can touch. Calls now. This is Miles on the south side of Denver, near Hampton and University. The streetlights are out and have been all night. King Supers opened with a line around the block at 5. They're letting in 10 people at a time. Carts only, no baskets, no self-check. They're taking cash and handwritten IOUS with a driver's license number. The freezer cases are sweating. Please tell people not to crowd the old folks. We had a moment and it almost went bad. A young guy stepped in and made space. We don't know his name. Copied Miles. If you're waiting in a line today, be the person who creates 2 feet of breathing room for someone who needs it. I promise you it costs less than you think it does. And if a store is taking IOUs and writing down numbers, that's a store trying to hold a community together with a pencil. Treat that pencil like it's made of gold. This is Ray in Fort Collins. I work at a small city pump station off Mulberry. We're on backup. We can keep the towers up at half pressure if we don't have a spike. Please don't run sprinklers. I know that sounds dumb when the world is weird, but someone will forget and set an automatic timer, and it will drain a tower for no reason. Also, brown water first thing this morning is from flow reversal. Let it clear if you can. Ray, thank you. If you heard that, and you have one of those timers that makes the yard pretty, walk outside and shut it off. The grass will forgive you. Your neighbor, who wants to brush his teeth without grit, will be grateful, even if he doesn't know it was you. This is Carlos in El Paso. The bridges are jammed. Pedestrians only. They're letting some through, turning some back. They say it's a systems check, but the scanners aren't scanning. They're waving people by if the paper looks right. My cousin sent a text from Las Cruces before his phone died. He said the gas stations there are cash only, and the cops are guarding 2 of them. Carlos, heard. If you're in a border town and you can, pack patience if you must go. If you don't have to go, don't. Moving when systems are misfiring is like trying to cross a stream when the rocks are just below the surface and slick with moss. You can do it. but you better be sure of your step. If there is a police presence at fuel, respect it, keep your head low, and trade time for heat. Bring water. Don't let your tank drop below half until you know the pattern in your town. I've got a sheet here from a hospital tech in Greeley. It came in on a relay from a ham who knows a janitor who knows a nurse. That's how a lot of this moves now, and I label it the best I can. Ventilator alarms, false firing. We're running one room off a different circuit because the main panel is acting like a stubborn car radio. Neonatal warmers need constant eyes. Parents sleeping on floors, no complaints, just scared. If you have a baby at home and a space heater, put the heater far away and never sleep with it on. That last bit is me repeating the part that matters. Space heaters kill quiet. Run them while you're awake. Turn them off while you sleep. Layer blankets and share heat. Insider talk for a minute. A grid operator I trust. She worked a control room for 15 years, and I know her voice. Left me a message at 2:10 this morning. She said the Western Interconnect is ringing, her word. Not steady enough to sing, but not quiet. She said they have islands they can hold, but the ties between islands keep slacking under load. We can keep it up in places if we can keep the big machine spinning. The trouble is the comms that tell the machines what to do are jittering, and the people who know how to do it by hand are tired. She asked me to tell anyone with a large backup system at a business or a farm to stagger start times if they can. All at once is what tips things. A minute between starts matters. A federal voice. No name. No agency. I could hear the trained cadence. Insisted last night that this is a hybrid incident. That's their term. He wasn't able to tell me what parts of the hybrid were larger. He said there will be statements today to clarify the situation. If you hear those, write down the parts with numbers, megawatts, hours, affected counties. Numbers are easier to test than moods. Then, look at your street. If the statement says stable and your block hums and goes dark twice in an hour, trust your block. If the statement says martial law for a region and your street is a man with a traffic wand who doesn't know where the detour goes, treat it like a detour, not a declaration. That's not defiance. That's keeping your head while the labels catch up to the reality. We're going to layer in some survival notes people asked me to repeat. If you have well water and the pump is out, you can still draw from the pressure tank by opening the drain at the bottom into a bucket. Close it when the flow stops so you don't lose what's left to a slow leak. If you have a gas water heater, the water in that tank is drinkable after you flush any sediment. Turn off the power, let it cool, pull from the drain valve with a short hose, and filter or boil if you can. If you have a neighbor who is older and proud, bring 2 cups and ask to share coffee. People accept help easier if they feel like they're offering something back, even if it's a seat at a table and a story you've heard twice. I'm going to read 3 quick dispatches from far away because Skip is kind, and they paint a larger shape without drowning us in it. A fisherman near Port Angeles said the navigation lights in the strait went dark at 3 a.m., then came back, then went dark again. Like someone flipping a coin, he said. A city worker in Minneapolis said their light rail shut with the cars between stations, and they had to walk passengers on the ballast under a cold moon while someone in a reflective vest read steps out loud in a steady voice that kept people from braking. A man in Atlanta said he saw 3 black SUVs idling outside a data center and a woman in a parka smoking with her hands shaking, and he felt bad for noticing the shaking, but he couldn't unsee it. That's the shape. Small, brave, large, strange. Now, eyewitness. We don't sanitize. We don't exaggerate. We name what we can. This is Naomi on the west side of Casper. There's a long line outside the pharmacy. People are wrapped in blankets, not talking much. A man came up and started selling little Ziploc bags of random pills for cash. He said they were antibiotics. The store manager came out and told him to leave. He left and then stood across the street and stared at the line. A woman in the line threw a cup of coffee at him. The manager is letting one person in at a time. It's slow, but it's fair. Naomi, thanks. If you're in a line like that, watch for opportunists. They're not always loud. If someone sells unlabeled pills on the sidewalk, that's not gray area. That's a no. Antibiotics are not candy. If you have extra prescriptions and can spare a few doses for a neighbor you trust, do it privately, clearly, with the name, dose, and number. Do not buy a bag of mystery and swallow hope. This has been Outside Pueblo. We drove past the transformer yard at dawn. We saw 3 burned bushings and a melted fence post like it drooped. There was a smell like hot pennies. No sign of a fire crew. A pickup with flashing ambers was blocking the access road. A man in a hard hat waved us on without looking up. Ben heard. If that yard took a hit, stand clear. These big yards can arc in ways that don't look like the arcs you see in movies. The ground there can carry stray current. A fence can bite. If you live within earshot and hear a long hiss followed by a pop, move away from the window. If you work there, you already know more than I do. I'm just repeating the rule. Distance is safety. This is Janelle in Wichita. We're using paper charts at the clinic today. We wrote the insulin doses in big black marker and taped them to the patient's blankets because the computers were down. Please tell people to bring their bottles. We can't read photographs on dead phones. Janelle, thank you. Paper has weight again. If you're going to a clinic, write your meds and doses in pen on paper. Put your name at the top. If you're stressed, you'll forget one thing you swear you won't. The paper remembers. I feel the need to talk about quiet crime and loud fear. When lights go out, the dark gives cover to people who cut corners. It also makes honest people jump at shadows and hurt each other by mistake. If you hear a noise behind your house, don't go out with a weapon you've never used and a heart beating like a hummingbird. Call a neighbor. Shine 2 lights from 2 angles. Talk. There is a difference between guarding and hunting. Choose the first one. If the police are thin and slow, they will still come faster to a street where no one made everything worse before they arrived. My own arc. Someone asked me to be honest about that when I started this. I'm getting shorter on patience with equipment, longer on patience with people. The board squeaked, and I said a word I don't use on air. A man called twice with the same rumor about troops at the old mall, and I caught myself wanting to snap. Then I took a breath and thought about how the old mall looks at dawn, flat and empty like a sea, and I pictured men in uniform doing stair drills on the cracked concrete to stay awake. It made me calm. I am still scared. I am also proud of you. I get notes in a dozen hands, some neat, some shaky, and the shaky ones keep me going more than the neat ones because I can feel the human behind them wrestling the pen. I slept 20 minutes on the cot and woke up with my hand on my chest because I felt like my heart had skipped. It hadn't. It was a small dream of the service door opening on its own. That's where I am. You're probably near that place too. Let's talk comms. The ham who relayed the hospital note asked me to say this again. If you're on HF, keep your transmissions short and repeat crucial numbers twice. If you're on GMRS or FRS, share channels. If a neighborhood net forms, don't stomp on it with a long story. offer your relay, pass your traffic, clear the air. If you have one of those little Baofeng handhelds, program it in the daylight with a paper guide. Don't try to learn it in the dark with cold fingers. And if you're saying, "What's a Baofeng?" ignore that whole sentence and focus on the part where you and your neighbors agree on one channel and one time a day to check in. Noon is a good time. 6 p.m. is a good time. Keep it predictable so people who are scared know when to listen. A question I keep getting: should I leave the city? The answer is not one size. If your building is safe, your neighbors are decent, and you have water, staying put avoids roads that may have more problems than you can see from your window. If your building is bad, your floor is leaky, your neighbors are strangers who already tried your door once, and you have a place to go within a tank of gas that will welcome you, then moving early is better than moving late. Early means daylight, paired cars, printed map, destination that expects you, and a trunk with food and blankets, not golf clubs and your best shoes. Don't drive into an idea. Drive to a person. A trucker named Solveig on I-80 west of Kearney left me this: service plazas are filling with trucks as if they're wolves bedding down together. People are kind. We trade coffee and jump starts. The bathrooms are getting rough. If you can, bring a roll of bags and leave them. A small act that saves a big mess. That's the kind of note I like to read. Specific and human. If you're at a rest stop and have extra bags or baby wipes, leave some by the sinks. Someone will bless you without you hearing it. I need to give space for a hard one. A teacher in Aurora, first name Anna, called and asked me to tell parents that schools are in a loop of closed until further notice. She said the district sent a mass email at midnight, and half the emails bounced. She asked me to say this plain: if you're a parent and your child's school is closed, do not drop them off at the door and hope. We had 3 kids show up yesterday in coats too thin and no one to call. We fed them and sat them in the gym until a cousin came. It broke us. If you have to work and have no one, knock on a neighbor's door and ask for 2 hours. If you are home and steady, put a note on your door that says, "Can watch 2 kids for 2 hours." Vet it as best you can. We're not building a system. We're building a bridge to noon. Back to insider chatter for a moment. Someone from a big telco, no name, told me their core routers are seeing root flaps that shouldn't be happening all at once. That's a way of saying the paths that data wants to take are flickering. If you're in IT, you already know that. If you're not, the translation is, the reason your music app loads once and then not again is not just because you have bars or don't. It's because the backbone is sneezing. There's also a rumor about GPS timing drift that is wider than it should be. The power grid uses GPS time. Banks use it. Phone systems use it. If time itself wobbles at the edges, you feel it in places that would never have made sense to you last week. That's why your bus didn't show, and the app said it did. That's why the gate at the garage kept moving when you were under it. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm trying to give you words so the odd does not feel supernatural. It's tech. It bleeds when it's cut. We'll close this hour's stretch with a few practical trades people asked me to air. A family on Dell Range is trading 2 5-gallon water jugs, empty, for ramen, 4 packs. They're not trying to gouge. They can't find noodles because their corner store is out, and they have more jugs than they need. Leave a note at the laundromat bulletin board with O and M at the top, and they'll meet you at noon. A ranch east of town needs diesel and can trade half a beef, delivered in quarters tomorrow if the cutter can come. If you work with knives and want the job, leave a note under butcher. A woman on the north side has extra size 5 diapers and needs baby formula. She'll meet at the church lot at 3 p.m. She asked me not to read her name on air. That's fine. We can keep dignity while we do business. I'm going to take a breath, sip coffee that tastes like the copper pipe in the back room, and read a few names of people checked in safe. Sometimes that's the work. Abby and Cal in Pine Bluffs, safe and warm with a wood stove they're watching like a hawk. Mr. Navarro on Pershing, safe, looking for his brother, who drives an orange Tacoma with a cracked tail light. If you see it, leave a note at the pump station. Hakeem and Jonah in Littleton, safe, charging neighbors' phones off a car battery with an inverter and a pile of cords that looks like a nest. Margaret on Horse Creek Road, safe with 2 dogs that bark at every gust and remind her she's not alone. It is 6:44 a.m. The light is here, but thin. A raven dropped onto the power line outside and fluffed itself like it owned the place. If that's not a sign, it's at least something to look at that isn't a gauge. I'll be back at the top of the hour with an update on the line tripping near Greeley, a word about what's going on with the guard convoy at the reservoir, and a longer piece from a nurse in Rapid City who spoke with me on a stairwell while holding a paper cup that bent under her fingers. If you have a message, keep it short and clear. If you can boil water, do it once a day and keep a clean pot. If you can't, bleach. 2 drops per liter, 8 per gallon. Sit for 30 minutes. If your phone still works, take a picture of your ID and your prescriptions and text them to yourself before it dies. Sometimes the thing that saves you is the one you did because someone on the radio said it and you didn't overthink it. This is Owen Kincaid on 6:40 a.m. out of a service bay that smells like dust and diesel and coffee. Hold fast. Breathe slow. I'm here. Tune back at 7. It's 7:03 a.m. Mountain Time. The sun is up now, though you wouldn't know it by warmth. The light is pale, stretched thin, making the cracked asphalt outside look like a faded photograph. The generator is steady for now, and the board hums with a tone I've come to recognize as both threat and comfort. This is Owen Kincaid on 6:40 a.m., Cheyenne. If you're hearing me, it means you're still in reach, and that means something. Quick updates before I go to the messages. I've got 3 separate confirmations that the guard convoy near the reservoir has set up a perimeter. No public statement on why. One caller said they saw hoses, heavy pumps, and men carrying test kits. My read? They're trying to keep that water clean and moving. If you live in the area, don't crowd them. Don't get curious. Let them work. That reservoir feeds more than this town. From Greeley, 2 transformers tripped again last night. One caller said he heard a noise like a shotgun going off, only deeper. Lights flickered across 3 neighborhoods. Crews are out, but the yard still smells of burned insulation. If you're nearby, stay back. Distance is your safety. Stray current kills faster than fire. All right, let's hear from you. This is Mary Ann in Salt Lake City. Last night the street went black. Every house lit candles, all at once, like the city turned old. Then, around 2 a.m., a line of trucks came down State Street with no lights. Big trucks. Some had tarps, no markings. They moved slow. People watched from windows, but nobody stepped out. When they passed, the power came back in half the houses, but not mine. The silence after was worse than the dark. Heard Marianne. If you're near Salt Lake and saw that, you're not alone. Sometimes silence is heavier than noise. Stay close to neighbors. Share light if you can. And don't chase convoys in the dark. You won't learn anything but how cold pavement feels when you trip. This is Paul in Wichita Falls, Texas. The phones died yesterday at lunch. At sundown, the water pressure dropped to a trickle. I walked to the fire station, and they had a sign taped to the door. No water, no ice, no gas, no info. A firefighter inside waved me away. He looked as lost as I felt. I went home and filled my bathtub from what was left. Tell people, fill tubs before the taps quit. It's not pretty water, but it's something. Paul, that's wisdom. If your tap still runs, even weak, fill your sink, your tub, every pot you own. Dirty water can be filtered. No water can't. That's the line. This is Casey in Portland. The bridges are jammed. They close the steel bridge with a single cruiser and 2 cones. The news says nothing. People are walking across the Hawthorne with bags over their shoulders. Some are turning back halfway, scared of what's on the other side. The Willamette looks calm, but you can feel the city pulling apart at the seams. Casey, thanks. If you're in Portland or any city with rivers and closed bridges, remember, closures are pressure valves. They don't always mean danger on the other side. Sometimes it's just control. Don't fight the choke point. Find another way or wait it out. A wrong move at a bridge can turn 10 nervous people into a stampede. Now, a word from Rapid City. I promised you this. A nurse called me at 5:10 this morning from a stairwell. She sounded out of breath, not from running but from holding too much inside. She said, "We are doing C-sections by flashlight. We are handwriting charts. We are boiling instruments when the autoclave fails. If you're listening, don't come here unless you have no choice. We can't be your comfort. We can only be your last chance." She started to cry, then steadied. "Tell them to stay warm. Tell them to share blankets. Tell them not to drink from streams. Tell them we're still here, but barely." That's her voice, not mine. If you're within reach of a hospital and thinking of going for comfort, listen to that. Save their hands for those who can't survive at home. Insider note. A contact in Denver says, packet loss is climbing on every major network. That's technical speak for voices and data getting dropped between here and there. It's why your video call freezes, or your bank app won't load, or your text never leaves the outbox. The reason I'm saying it plain, don't trust a digital message to arrive. If it's important, say it twice, write it once, and if you can, walk it to the door. Before I break, a handful of survival reminders. Tape your fridge shut. You'll thank yourself later. Boil water when you can. Bleach when you must. Share heat. Don't sleep with generators running inside. Don't buy pills in plastic bags. Write down what matters. And if you can, check in with me. Name, place, what you see. This radio line is thin, but it's still here. It's 7:32 now. The raven outside is gone. The power line it sat on still stands, humming like a tuning fork. I'll be back after fuel check. Keep your heads level. Keep your hands steady. This is Owen Kincaid on 6:40 a.m. If you're hearing me, it means you're still here. And that means everything.